Pokemon news got spicy over the last 12 hours as Japanese Pokemon news site Matome Pokemon dropped a shocking revelation. Game Freak is developing the next game that will surpass Pokemon. Real? Okay, let's go to the Game Freak website. We can scroll down, and there it is. We're currently developing the Pokemon series, which is loved all over the world. We're also developing the next masterpiece that will surpass that. Alright, no wonder that got 1 million views and is kind of popping off right now. Now, Central Pokemon came in and did something interesting. They posted real information? This isn't new. That phrase has been on the website for years and doesn't mean anything. That's the interesting thing about Centro. They don't get to clickbait the fake news first. They're going to use their platform to tear you down with the debunk. But let's see if Centro Pokemon is telling the truth. So I went to the Wayback Machine and I just clicked like a random date a couple of years ago, April 19th, 2021. There it is. So this has just been hanging out for a couple of years. No one's covered it, or it never got like that big viral blow up. And I guess after a couple of years hasn't really gotten into an announcement or meant anything. It actually goes deeper. Poke Experto, way more integrity than Centro Pokemon. They have brought the full details down. Normally, we don't say anything when false rumors come out so as not to give them more attention. But since this one has spread a lot, I'm going to explain why it has not appeared on Poke Experto. And that's like another thing that must be rough about being a news site that's not trying to give attention to fake stuff or at least have credibility, because your audience is like, hey, why aren't you covering this? Why aren't you covering this? Other people are covering this. You're late to the news. You're just a bad news site. It's like, no, we don't cover fake information. And sometimes they can't even like say this is fake, so all those things go away. But in the case of something so viral, they need to make a statement about it to dispel misinformation and protect their brand. An ambiguous Japanese phrase translated with Google Translate can be misleading. Correct? We've seen this happen in Pokemon before. In particular, this part is an ambiguous form that can refer to surpassing Pokemon as a series, surpassing the latest Pokemon game, etc. So it's a self-improvement thing. And even without that context, you can interpret this statement in that way. The problem is, the Pokemon community hasn't been sane or rational for at least a decade, and it's always about like the biggest, most clickbaity story or the craziest speculation. So we're currently developing Pokemon, which is loved all over the world. We're also developing the next masterpiece that will surpass that. So it's like, that will surpass that is kind of the statement. Are they surpassing Pokemon, or are they surpassing, through improvement, the Pokemon they've already created? Game Freak website has not been updated recently. This has been around since 2019, so even going further back to my random, I'm just going to see what happened 2 years ago. There are ways to find out when official website changes in seconds, and no changes have occurred. Also, Game Freak has always had side projects under Project Gear, never been the main business. Such a change in strategy does not make sense for them to simply add it to their official website. Also, if this has been around for 4 years, where's the announcement? Where's the development thing that's going to surpass Pokemon? And regardless of when the website changed or when it got posted, that statement is in line with what Pokemon has been representing for many years now. I mean, it even goes back to like the first Pokemon press conference back in 2018. So at least over 5 years of Pokemon growing as a company to just kind of do everything, with the main slogan being connecting the real and virtual world. And we have seen, mostly like in Japan, these major expansions where it's just like, yeah, Pokemon is incredibly interconnected. Prefectures in Japan getting their own Pokemon mascot with adorable costumes and everything. The website also showing planes with Pokemon. Now that's always been a thing, but we're seeing like more transit representation for Pokemon, more EV spread, all of those things. The Pokemon Go community events are also insane in Japan. And then we also have things like Pokemon Smile, Pokemon Sleep. So it's really bringing Pokemon into the real world, and they've been big on that for many years. Pokemon Concierge, that dropped. It's on Netflix. We also have Pokemon World Championships, getting a lot of love, getting a lot of attention, despite all the cheating. And then just tons of corporate stuff. It also goes to Creatures. I believe I covered last year when they moved their corporate office, just kind of like, yo, Game Freak, Pokemon Company, Creatures, they're making moves. Also kind of ties into the Pokemon CG studio. And this also exposes a lot of ignorance about the corporate side of Pokemon, that people are like, oh, Game Freak just needs to wait a year before making another Pokemon game. Except there's multiple development teams working on multiple Pokemon games at the same time, which is why the yearly release works, and delaying a Pokemon game by a year isn't going to make it any better. Also, the concept for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was revealed by Game Freak at CEDEC 2023, and it really shows that Nintendo Switch is what's been holding Game Freak back. It doesn't matter how much more development time you put. You objectively need something more powerful than the Nintendo Switch to get what Game Freak wants. Now, could they have optimized Pokemon Scarlet and Violet better? Sure, but it's not going to make a big enough change to matter compared to like the development time put into it. Also, like, we're getting into the end of the Nintendo Switch lifespan. Development time for future projects is going to be far more valuable. And that goes back to the multi-development team yearly cycle thing for Game Freak. Creatures has its Pokemon CG studio, and they make the assets for the 3D Pokemon games. So it's not like, oh, there's only 140 people working at Game Freak. Game Freak should just hire, 1,000 more people with their infinite money and make all the Pokemon games better. No, there's already almost 1,000 people working on Pokemon games because it's outsourced to multiple companies inside of the Creatures Pokemon ecosystem, and everything's getting its own necessary amount of development time. But yeah, Creatures has had website updates and mission statements and all that stuff. We've seen not really too much change on the Game Freak website on that development, and then same thing on the Pokemon Company website. So this is all just par for the course, which makes sense why it's like getting debunked. But unfortunately, when fake news spreads like this through the Pokemon community, the other bad actor Poketubers are going to immediately jump on it, especially when it's something this viral. It's the freest, easiest clickbait. Also, the Game Freak bashing has been super popular right now, fueled by the same bad actor influencers. Instead of being rational about the current state of Game Freak, Pokemon, and the Pokemon Company, I do like going back, revisiting these things inside of context though. So that's usually what happens, like, oh, fake news, fake leak, wait, let's see what's going on in Pokemon, and then just kind of revisiting Creatures Pokemon Company website and seeing how it's held up or how it looks into the future. Remember when this was huge? 2019 and more. Of course, Pokemon's doing things, but press conference 2019. That's a bit interesting. Also, the ignorance that we've seen over the last couple of years is kind of insane because it's been 3 years now of leaks and insiders saying that we're going to get a Nintendo Switch 2 announcement next month that have never happened. But as we get to the end of the Nintendo Switch, or we don't know what is happening with Nintendo, and Game Freak is going to have to respond to that with current games and planning for new games. It's also interesting to think about this being stated in 2019 because Pokemon Sword and Shield definitely stepped it up because we had an open area in Pokemon for the first time, and then we went straight into open world, but also we had Pokemon Legends Arceus. Even though I consider that game like the biggest stain on Pokemon, gameplay loop is horrible, story is horrible, it's just like a complete 1 out of 10 Pokemon game. Everything about it is sloppy and careless, but this can also be seen like, oh, now we have Ilka making our spin-off Pokemon games, still counting towards main series. We're also doing other main series things, branching off of what happened when Pokemon Let's Go, and the ambition here is kind of captured by the Game Freak statement. So it's like, yeah, we're developing the next masterpiece. That could be considered for Pokemon Legends, or even Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, or also just like, yeah, it's a mission statement, just like bringing together the real world and Pokemon. Either way, comment your thoughts down below. Did you see this? Did you get baited? Did you remember like seeing this in the past when like exploring about Game Freak? Problem about the Pokemon community is that they know absolutely nothing about Game Freak and the inner workings of Pokemon or Pokemon news and Pokemon history. So kind of skews how this could be represented to also getting a huge blow up like this. And Centro and other outlets coming in late, like, oh, wait a second, while I was asleep, all this blew up, gotta set the record straight, leads to like a lot of weird stuff going on. But how do you feel about this future Pokemon? A lot of it doesn't really matter because like pretty much 2 months from now, we're going to have Pokemon Day, and that's really going to set the course for what's going on with Pokemon. So if you guys enjoy the video, hope you have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.